Superheroes, another episode of the Superhero Academy podcast. Here with somebody who I realize today is the first day that we've met.
Yep.
But it's amazing to think that I've seen so many of your videos, so much of your work over the years. Kosta Stoyanoff?
Stoyanoff. Yep.
I kind of got it.
That was good.
From upliftedlife.com. Well, thank you for coming out. Thank you for
the invitation.
jumping in, literally diving into the deep end here.
That was great.
In our first ever meeting.
Oh, yeah, I've heard a lot about you too, and it's like I was like, yeah, I mean, like I know you, but I've never face to face. It's all the videos that you've done, and so it's a pleasure to meet face to face.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure.
Yep.
Okay, so tell me, I know you've entered into the coaching world with essentially just slowly but surely building up over time, just a base of clientele. Right before we pressed record, you started mentioning that now you've infiltrated this information is entering into corporations and the corporate world, businesses, CEOs, that kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit more about who you are, your backstory, and a little bit more about like your methodology in the world of coaching. I think you bring a really interesting perspective to the table and some of the videos that I've watched before and some of the information I've found on your website. Yep. But I would love to hear it from you. Just, what brought you to who you are today and some of the methodology you have now?
Yeah, I think basically I was brought to this world. It's to the whole coaching world. It started off with, formal background is a degree in psychology, degree in kinesiology. Mm-hmm. Been fascinated by what makes people tick. Like ever since I was a kid, it's like, why do people do what they do? It's like, what's going on inside? Why can one person experience something alongside somebody else, and they both have a completely different, experience, but both of them are experiencing the same thing. And so that really got me interested in psychology. When I was young, I read a few books, got a degree, stopped before my master's degree. Long story, just didn't want to go down that route.
Understand.
I was like so boxed in. Followed my second passion, which was the body. And quickly I realized, wait a minute, the mind-body link. I mean, this is really important. Suffered all my life with body image issues, weight issues. Had a stuttering problem, severe stuttering problem when I was a kid. So it's almost like life kind of piece by piece by piece by piece led me to do what I'm doing now. This is the next logical thing. It's like life is calling me forward. I didn't quite know. I never would have expected to have a personal wellness and fitness company. It was just like, I suffered so much with weight issues and body image issues and not loving myself. And wait a minute, like I think I can show people, what allowed me to better myself and transform my life. Next thing you know, it's turning into a business, and it's turning into a very good business where I get to do what I love and help so many people. I did that for 10 years after coming out of university, always being focused with, what's happening in your body is really happening because of what's happening between your two ears. I can give you all the diet, diet, nutrition, boot camp workouts. But if we don't correct the way that you see yourself and the way that you engage with yourself, the relationship between you and the way that you see the world, and nothing is going to change. So a lot of the work that I was doing even back then was helping people just get their head on straight, to stop being their worst enemy, to stop sabotaging themselves, to start loving themselves, to start paying attention to their self-talk, the anxiety, the stress, because that was all being, it was just being reflected in their body. So I would say 70% of the work that I was even doing as a personal trainer was all based on, psychology, the headspace stuff. Did that for 10 years. And then coaching was calling me. It's like, I think this is what I'm meant to be doing. I wasn't turned on the way that I used to be by the fitness stuff. It was more like sitting down and getting to know someone, getting to get inside their head and helping them out that way. And to make a long story short, a few things kind of happened to me that opened the door to just do coaching. And at the beginning, I didn't even know what I was doing. It was like I was sitting in front of someone who was basically being referred to me. He's like, go see this guy. He's kind of, he's going to help you see clearly. A client would sit down. I would just listen, and what would come through would be very helpful. It was amazing to hear me communicate all of this wisdom, and to
Even from your own perspective.
even from my own perspective, I was like, okay, like, I mean, this is helpful. Like, this is helpful for me. If I apply it to, if what's coming through and sharing, and what I'm sharing with my, with my client, there was no protocol. There was just, let's sit down and talk and see what happens. And it's always been good. I kind of like sizing things up and steering the person towards seeing things from a different perspective, from a much clearer perspective, from a more positive perspective. And I would just follow that. I would just sit down and say, you know what, I think something pretty cool is going to happen. Share what's going on, and we see where it goes. Next thing you know, one client refers me to another client, and it's just, I think this is what I want to be doing. And I had to, tailor off the personal training and jump and just do personal coaching. But to be honest, I didn't even know what to call myself. I had no business cards. It was just the people referring people to me. I would sit down and just open my heart, really, more than anything else. And that, next thing you know, there's a lot of clients showing up. Next thing you know, there's people that are asking me, well, if I get a small group to come, would you just share this stuff? I'm like, okay. All right.
And I bring my team and can then this, and then it goes further and further. It
just
and further.
mushroomed out. And and the same thing with the corporate world. I would sit down, somebody would refer me to you. Something wasn't quite aligning in your life. You heard about this guy named Kosta. Most people would sit down and it's like, I don't know what you do, but this is what, and I swear, I mean, that's exactly the story. Every single time somebody would say, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what you do, but I trust the person that referred me to you. So here. And we would just get to talking, and I was, begin the process of coaching them, guiding them. And they would come up and we say, the stuff that you're teaching me, can you teach it to my wife or to my husband or to my kids? And that became, the stuff that you've taught me has really been transformational. I think I have this company. I would love for you to speak to my leadership core, because I think this type of information is so powerful and so important. And next thing you know, I'm an executive coach. I'm a corporate coach, and I'm bringing all these, getting invited to speak here, to travel there, and to get, to hold these workshops for companies. And so
what I love about it is that
it has called me, so I can't take any credit for it.
Yeah, what I love about it is that I think the world of coaching for me has been it's been bastardized in some ways, in the sense that there's so many millennials who got into it more from the other perspective, which is like, oh, how can I be self-empowered, a digital nomad, and work from home, and like do all these things, and then like they start checking off the boxes and putting X's on some of the other ones, and eventually they land on like, okay, maybe I can be a coach, right? And I think that some people are definitely talented in doing that. Obviously, there's phenomenal coaches out there,
sure.
But there are others who are just naturally brought into that, and it feels like that's your story, and that's what I love about that, is that people are naturally good at particular things and then bring those gifts into more and more, they build parameters and systems and tools and a company and an organization, but it all comes from a deep-seated passion that's actually within you. For me, that's how I identify with Superhero Academy. It's not like I don't know that I'm the best teacher in the world. I just know that I'm incredibly passionate about certain things, and that people respond to the way that I communicate, and other people hate the way I communicate, and that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like I'm not meant to coach or mentor or support every single person and everything that they're doing, nor are you. But the point is that you get to share those gifts, and it only requires a small number of people to have a real impact. And have that impact just continuously grow.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I can tell you stories where, what I'm living now, those seeds were planted 5 years ago, where I would, coach someone 5 years ago that I, just opened my heart, and it was just, and 5 years later they're saying, I remember, do you do what you do for business execs? I'm like, yeah, I actually do. And next thing you know, you're
Yeah, because their life changes, but it takes time to change, and then eventually they end up in a higher position at some job or whatever it is.
They remember you.
Yeah, and they attribute things to you.
Yeah.
Right? They attribute a breakthrough or a shift, right?
Exactly.
A shift from anxiety, depression, a particular state, essentially, a state of being, to a new identity, to an identity that says, hey, I'll use your terminology, uplifted, right? I'm empowered into this new state, and now I get to bring this to others.
Right.
And so in a weird way, it's an ecosystem.
Yep.
And you use the word seeds planted because I attribute everything back to an ecosystem. I believe that that's what we're doing, right? Every one of us has a different role in that ecosystem, and some of us are just there literally to be guides or mentors to others who have very specific missions or very specific growth patterns that they're going to play a very specific role in that ecosystem. Yeah. But what works for a man, a woman, an executive, a kid, all of those things have some fundamental principles in psychology, in the body-mind connection. So yeah, power to you to just find a way, like just to make this all happen. It seems like there's a lot of people trying a lot harder than you are to try and break through. And not only have you been able to break through in the corporate world, but you've also broken through the team that surrounds you. I would say the social world to some degree. We were just talking about, how the algorithms are favoring different, content, and how it's more difficult now to grow than it was before. But you were also able, through your content, through the memes, through the videos, to bring this to more people on a mass scale as well. So it's impressive. It's impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All credit goes to my team. I've been very blessed and surrounded, have some amazing talents, some amazing people, to kind of believe in this and stand beside me and help me create this. To be really honest, the camera petrifies me. It petrified me forever. From a guy who couldn't even pronounce his name,
what else, stuttering?
Yeah, massive amount of stuttering, to a guy who now can kind of say, can get up in front of a camera or in front of people and just share what he's passionate about. Has been a giant leap for me. But it's always been, facing my fear, doing what's calling me forward, following my heart, and if it helps one person, it's enough. I've never seen it as a business. I've never even seen myself as a coach. Really, I believe it was just, hey, you know what? This stuff is really helping me become the best version of myself. It's helping me remain calm, remain grounded. It's helping me become kind. I'm a better father. I'm a better husband. I'm a better son. I'm a better brother. Let me share. If it's helping me, I'm sure it's going to help someone else. Yeah. So let me just document this. Let me just get in front of a crowd. Let me just do what I'm being asked to do. Really, more than anything else, it's like, let me do what I'm being asked to do. It sounds a little airy-fairy. It sounds a little fluffy. But reality is, my greatest accomplishment, really, Mark, it's been get myself out of my own way. Get myself out of my own way. Don't, get my expectations out. Don't see it as a business. Don't see myself as an entrepreneur. It's just like, this is what is being asked of me. Let me face, because that comes with a bunch of challenges and fears and insecurities. Let me face those. I know through that I'll be a better version of myself. And in the meantime, if I help one person, awesome. Yeah. Right? Just let me play. Let me be myself. Let me enjoy my life. And if I make a little bit of money, fantastic, right?
Well, there's something beautiful about what you're saying there, which is ironic, because I if I'm honest with myself, I don't feel like I've put out nearly close to the real work that I know I'm going to do here. And it's weird to say, because I know I've had success in what I've done, but it's because I'm really good at lots of things, but I'm actually really great or genius at very few things, right? And there's that genius zone is difficult to stay in, particularly when you start seeing the needles move on all these other pieces. Right. And so you're seeing like you could have easily continued to scale your coaching career from a body perspective, right? And being a personal trainer or anything like that, right? But instead you start to continuously move of like, where is this really feeling the most powerful for me? Where am I having the most impact? Where is my highest excitement? And also, where's my own edge? And those two things generally are at the same place, right?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, I really believe that like the biggest work, the biggest impact I'll have is where I'm most afraid, in the weirdest of ways,
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
And there's a reason why all these other things are meant to support us to get there. And I don't want to say there's a reason from the perspective of like a dharma of a specific God or the universe, whatever you believe, right?
Yep.
Agnostic or not, believer, of any religion or not. I just believe that there's something supernatural, I'll call it a superpower,
Yep.
that we all have that guides us in this way. And I believe that as a counterbalance to that superpower, there's a super kryptonite that actually propels us in many ways in that same direction, right? The things that I suck at, the things that I'm afraid of, the things that kind of incapacitate me, in some ways also become my biggest strength, but vice versa. My biggest strengths are sometimes my biggest weaknesses. And my ability, for example, to manage a bunch of moving pieces and find all kinds of complexity and move that complexity into, and bring that all into one ecosystem, as successful as I've been at that, I actually believe it's been, over time, I realize it's actually a limiting force for the thing that I really want to do the most.
Okay.
And the thing I really want to do the most is make videos.
Right.
I really love storytelling. It's by far the thing I love to do the most.
Yeah.
How that felt in some moments was like, oh, I like teaching, or I like this and I like that. And those are all true, but really I like storytelling. And that's the byproduct of storytelling is you can do, you have success as a mentor, have success as an online school, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're really good at listening and following your intuition. Would you say that's true?
I think it is.
When did you tap into that?
I think as a kid, I mean, if I'm really honest, I've kind of had this ability to just tune in, figure out what's good for me, keep it simple. I'm a real simple guy. I've always been really, really simple. If it's too complex, for some reason, it's not for me. It might be for someone else, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel like play and it feels like work, that's not for me. It's always been my attitude. It's always like, if I'm not having fun doing this, if it doesn't light me up, if it doesn't feel like I'm at flow, then I'm not going to do that. Ironically, my thesis in university was on The Power of Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which is really, really funny. But I mean, I've always felt like that. It's like I'm here for a finite time. I kind of figured that out when I was young. Like I'm playing this game called Kosta, for a finite time. No matter what the world tells me. And I remember growing up with all kinds of impressions being put on me that it's hard and you have to suffer and you have to sacrifice and you have to do this and I never drank that Kool-Aid. It was like, wait a minute, it's not supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be playful. It's supposed to be fun. I'm supposed to feel good. I mean, there's going to be a whole bunch of things in my life that are going to be challenging. Loss, there's change, grief, sadness. All those things are part of life. But I have the ability to choose certain things, though. And what I do with my time, I get to choose. What I do as a career, I get to choose. How I get to see, the way that I see the world, I get to choose that. I choose to see, at least my world.
And even how you respond to it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens to the world, your response to the world is yours.
Exactly, which is one of the fundamental teachings. Like shit's gonna happen. You get the privilege to choose the way that you will respond. The story, the narrative that you will overlay on what's happening is your superpower. And that's at the fundamental of what I share. It's like take responsibility, at least for the story that you're weaving, because it's going to create your experience of what's going on. And so for whatever reason, even as a kid, I kind of followed that flow. It's like, what feels good to me now? What doesn't feel good to me? When I was in university, everybody said, you have to go, you're so good at what you do, go and get your PhD in psychology. For some reason, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. Go and get it just didn't feel right. I came out of university, I was overqualified, to work in my field. It felt good to go back into sales. I mean, long story, but it felt good to go back into sales and just kind of, just get a job, talk to people. I would sell fitness equipment. I could have went in so many different directions. I chose to go sell fitness equipment. Next thing you know, a door opens that I can start my own company to be a personal trainer. It's like, wow, I mean, that's incredible. So just being able to pay attention and to trust and to say, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this door, but this door feels really, really good. And I think to your point, every door that I decided to cross scared the shit out of me. because I didn't know what was on the other side, and I didn't know if I had what it takes to get the job done, let's just say. But I just followed that. It just feels that this is the next logical step for me. And through those challenges, I grew. But through but through walking through that door, I found my flow. It was like, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is what life wants of me. It wants me to grow, and it wants me to contribute. And every single time, that's what I've kind of paid attention to. Will I be able to grow? Will this challenge me? Will this make me face my fears? Will this make me uncomfortable? But is it exciting at the same time? Does it talk to my heart and to my soul? It's like, yeah, then I'm going right there. Will it allow me to touch at least one person's life with what I'm producing as content, or the information that I'm sharing, or the product that I'm going to put together? Does this have the ability to contribute to someone's life, to make them go from a space of contraction to a space of lightness and openness? Will it solve that person's problem? And by doing that, what is the ripple effect of that? That's all that I pay attention to. Like, if I have a conversation with you, I'm hoping that after this conversation, you're going to, again, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it's great. But can I leave this space with leaving it lighter than when I got in? It's like, and then if that's done, then great. My job is done. That's all that I cared about. And it just led me to where I am, and just paying attention, but keeping it simple. If it seems too complicated, I stay away. Yeah. If it does,
that's where you and me diverge.
Yeah.
But in the worst of ways, I would say. Yeah. Like for me, I'll say for myself, is I feel like a lot of my identity was wrapped up in the world has to be on hard mode.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And I would say I'm still deconstructing that at this moment, which is,
I mean, that is a huge paradigm. Sorry to interrupt.
Of course.
I mean, like, if you want to succeed, you got to suffer. It's hard. It's tough. It's a grind. It's a hustle.
Yeah. And I'm just incredibly wrapped in that conditioning.
Right.
And I think it's partially because of like the way that my parents had to hustle. Yeah. And I would say had to in certain scenarios. Like, I do believe that at different times of different periods of time, there are different energies that are required to move through those different periods of time, right? Like, if we're in a time of war versus a time of peace, there's different energy that needs to be exuded by the people
100%.
To move through those different situations.
Right.
And so there's life happening, to you, there's life happening for you, and then there's life happening through you, right? The component of there is certain things that do happen to you, and there are certain things that do happen for you as well. But how it happens through you is really what I'm hearing you're saying, right? And I used to hear the word flow, and like hate it. I hated people who would tell me this, and I have like best friends who run a school called the Art of Flow, and like all the things that like. And one of my clients was Jamie Wheel, right, in a Flow Genome Project. Like I would hear this, and I'm an empowered. I've been self-employed since I've been 18. I'm 31 now, okay? I've been empowered in many ways, but I've been empowered mainly through my ability to turn my kryptonite, essentially my anger, into fuel to build the dam that controlled the flow.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a difference, right?
Yep.
There's a difference within I can muscle my way to the top. I can muscle my way, and top meaning my own mountain that I'm climbing, or I can just like flow my way through life. And Either way, I can choose whether it's going to be easy or feel easy, or it's going to be hard and feel hard, right? And it's not to say that there's not going to be easy stuff and there's not going to be hard stuff, no matter how I choose to weave it or how I choose to perceive it, let's say. But I've just been wrapped in the identity of hard.
Yeah.
And somebody said this to me the other day. They're like, why is it that you think life has to be lived on hard mode?
Great question.
And it was a very good question. This is my friend who's an artist here. His name is Jeremy. He's the guy who made that Just Do It sign over there. Yeah. He's what I love about him is he doesn't think 1,000 moves ahead. And it's not because he's not capable of it. It's not because he's not smart or intelligent, nor is living life in flow. It's actually just simpler. It feels easier, and it has more joy and lightness to it when you can really move down to the now. And no matter how many now watches I wore on my wrist, I used to wear it every day. It's one thing to cognitively know something. It's another to experience it or to embody it.
100%.
And identify with it. And that's where I think I've struggled a ton personally.
Yeah, I think, again, if I take my story, and and how did I synthesize my experiences from my past that make me see the world this way? You know, my father suffered so much, like like an immigrant boy arrives in Canada with a little T-shirt in the middle of winter in Calgary. Minus 36. He's coming from from Turkey, immigrating. Just trying to find a job just to make it. Making it all the way to becoming an entrepreneur, right? So to make a long story short, owning restaurants, grinding it out, working like a madman for the Canadian dream, right? I mean, to make it, and realizing that he sacrifices so much, but yet he's not happy. He sacrifices so much to have a certain lifestyle, yet he misses out on his children growing up. Alienates his wife. It's just he was going.
It was a product of the sacrifice that he chose that he had to make.
This is what
he was a soldier of life.
Exactly.
In every sense of the word.
You get dropped in. This is your paradigm. This is what you got to do. You got to grind it out, right? Yeah. But the more money he made, the less happy he became. The more money he made, the more money he wanted. And sacrificing his happiness, right? Just seeing him go through that, all to declare bankruptcy and had it all taken away from him, right? And
through a financial crisis or something, fault of his own necessarily.
I would probably say a mix of both, right? Yeah. It's just bad.
And life and the universe.
And life and universe, bad choices, shit happens. This is, you just got, it is what it is. Yeah. Seeing that kind of allowed me to have a bigger picture of what life was all about. Like I saw going from nothing to having a little bit of something as a family, and not necessarily bringing us together, not necessarily making us happier. Yeah. So that somehow stayed in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it sounds like a Jim Carrey story when he spoke about his dad, who was an accountant. It just I don't know why it reminded me of that. But I think it's a common story.
Yeah,
particularly for people in your age group. Like and even in my age group, like I think there's a tail end to that period of time that was like work hard, super, super tough. Yeah. I still feel like I've got those genes baked into me, but I don't know that everyone had that same experience. Yeah, but I hear your story. I really relate to it.
Those genes got knocked out of me because, as much as I saw what my father went through and what we went through as a family, even through the down to the up to the down, when I realized that there was no happiness, when you're looking for happiness on the other side of success, you will never find it. When you're looking for happiness on the other side of money, you will never find it. When you're looking for happiness on the other side of one day I will have enough to feel safe, you will never have it. Well, even the fact that I knew this, I still followed in my father's footsteps, right? Yeah. I still had the gene of fear, sacrifice, just go and grind and make and, build up a nest egg for your future. What ended up happening was in 2008, when the markets fell, I lost everything. So, seeing what my father went through, you would think that I would know not to sacrifice time away from the family. I did exactly that. I was grinding and hustling to bring my personal training business to the next level, and it was coming in.
I think it's a very natural thing to do, particularly as a male. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's part of the provider mentality that we were told to do in some way, shape, or form. But I'm not saying it's serving us.
No,
I'm
it's saying, not. It's the mind. It's the mental construct, right? Yeah. We buy into it, and unbeknownst to us, we just fall right into it. It's there, and you're living right through it. And I lived right through it. For the first 2 years, I was hustling and grinding, and I didn't even see my daughter's first 2 years. I was hardly home. My wife was like, "Am I a single mom? Like, what's going on?" And she was complaining that we didn't have family time together. And I was saying, "Look, but I'm doing this for you." Yeah. The same language that my father would use, right? Like, who am I doing this for? Don't you want a house? Don't you want us to buy the house? And my wife was, "We can stay here. It's no problem. I want to have you. I don't have you. You're not fun to be around. You're always stuck in your head. Even if you're not working and you're here, you're not here. You're actually back at work. You're always preoccupied by something." And I didn't hear it. Which was the same thing was what was going on between my mom and my dad. My wife and I came close to a divorce. You know, those red flags, you know, I mean, I saw tons of red flags that I was going in the wrong direction, right? I was doing what I loved. Yeah. I loved the personal training stuff. I was I was aligned, passionate, and I was contributing. You couldn't get better than that. And I was making money. Yeah. It was great.
That's where I'm at now.
But I was doing it with the wrong energy. I was doing it with this tightness, with this warrior, like I gotta provide, I gotta do, this is my mission. And you know what? Because when you bring that energy into the world, that tightness, even if you love what you're doing, it's the energy that lays the imprint, right? It's like that tight energy will bring more tightness. That contracted, that heavy, that warrior energy will give you more wars to fight. Yeah, it's a reflective universe. I didn't know that.
When all your problems look like nails, and then you only have one
you
option,
become a
right?
hammer, man. Yeah. You know, so you know, it took the 2008 crisis to knock the shit out of me, to go from everything that I tried to do to feel safe, make money, you know, everything just fell apart. It was unbelievable. You know, I think we had less than $20,000 in the bank. You know, we were just contemplating whether we'd sell the house. Like, I'm just telling you my story. For me, that was, oh my God, right? What's happening? To someone else, that might be like, dude, you had $20,000 in the bank. What are you complaining, right? Totally. But in that moment in time, that was
it was
disaster.
The end of the world.
It was the end of the world. But through that, I realized I was able to snap out for some reason and to look back and say, wait a minute. This is the same thing that my dad did. This is my program. I'm putting in so many hours. I'm grinding, but I'm not really, really happy. I'm not flowing. I'm not playful. This is serious stuff. And I don't believe especially now, I don't believe that life was meant to be serious. We make it serious. And I now more than ever do I know that if you're not playful and if you're not open, if you're not light, you're not going to tap into your genius. You're going to be okay. Yeah. That you won't tap into your genius for sure. You're definitely not tapping into your intuition. And so to me it was just let it go. The price wasn't, you know, the sacrifice wasn't worth it. And so I just said to myself, nah, man, we're gonna regroup here. This is a massive life lesson. And you know, I still continued to do what I did, but the beauty of it, meaning like, you know, continued personal training, you know, building the business. But I found pleasure in just not even thinking about how I was going to build it, just having pleasure being with my clients, having pleasure being, being in that apartment that we had, not even caring about the house.
Grace and gratitude that comes with it all.
Exactly. It was just get back to the basics. And that's where the whole thing about back to the basics, right? I've really built my life now going forward around those simple teaching, simple basics that ground you. And it's like,
so what are those basics? I would love to hear some.
So exactly what you just said, right? I mean, if you can't find the pleasure and the beauty in where you are, you're certainly not going to find it when you have more stuff, right? If you've met your basic needs, right, and you're not, you know, again, you know, worried where the next paycheck is to put food on the table, you know, if those basic needs are met, the rest of it is just...
Yeah, but for me, the problem is I'm not worried about the next paycheck, but then I invest so that I'm back to worried about the next paycheck.
Right.
Do you get what I mean? I'm so used to a fight or flight response.
Right.
I'm just so good at it.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's what I mean. Not genius.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm going to do my best work.
Yeah.
I'm good at it.
Yep.
I'm so good at dancing that dance and being in the fire, essentially, being in the trench, in the war.
That's familiar to you.
It's all that I know.
Yeah, it's all that you know.
Right? And I've experienced the other element, and I've built things that do flow in certain moments. I've been in that path. Valhalla is an example, how Superhero Academy came up to being, even the masterminds that we started to run. There's certain moments where I've been right in that lane. It's hard for me to distinguish what got me there and what I was doing or not doing or who I was being or what I was identifying with, what brought all those things to the table. But at the end of the day, I know for a fact that this is my, like everything you just spoke about, right? My ability to like feel that joy and that pleasure. If I'm being really honest, I love doing this. I really do. Yeah. But particularly this. And this is why I'm like, okay, I have to do this every week. It has to be in person. Like there's certain things that are like now becoming non-negotiables for me. Yeah. And it's because this, and people ask me all the time, like, oh, are you monetizing your podcast? I'm like, nope, I don't care. All I care about is having this conversation. Yeah. And I know that I want it to work. Yep. That's the only other thing. Yep. I just want it to work. Yep. I don't care how many people are listening. I don't really pay attention to those numbers. I just want the equipment to actually function, to be efficient. Yep. That's my ask, right? But I know that the fact that I struggle with this machine, I know that the fact I have all these little tech glitches every once in a while, like I'm able to take one step forward, but then 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm still moving. I'm still trending in the right direction. Yep. But I know for a fact that you are totally correct that if I bring that tight energy, then I have little wars that I have to fight all the time. Yep. But I honestly do not know how to fully invite grace, surrender, playfulness, all those things. I told people for the longest time, for a few years, and I'm recovering now much, much better than I was even a year ago, 2 years ago. I literally forgot what it was like to experience joy. Like I could not feel, like I make a video and I hate it. By the time I want to publish it, I'm like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like I can't necessarily get there in all moments of my life. Yep. For me, psychedelics is a massive way of like pattern interrupt. It's like, it's my version of a 2008 crash on a regular cadence at this point. Yep. Not abused or anything like that, but just it's my reset button. Sure. Because it's all I know. It's the only tool, it's the only thing that I've ever come across that has been that effective. But I know that that's very limiting. I know that there's daily practices or little things that I can do. It's hard for me to build those habits in certain moments, but I know that this is my edge. Yeah. So for anyone who's listening to this, and I think a lot of people who listen to this, people who resonate with me, therefore want to be kind of like me sometimes. And if they want to be like me, they have to understand that there's the hero side of that. There's beauty in what I've been able to accomplish. There's also the downside of that. So what would you say? I would love to hear just more about the specifics of some of the basics that you outline in your genius and the things that you've discovered about yourself and your own journey.
Well, to me, I just go back to that, right? Where I've come to know, it's not even a belief. It's like, I know through my own experience that nothing good will get created out of contraction. Nothing good. Yeah. So momentary contraction, right? Like I have to there's danger, there's something, I have to protect myself, survival, you contract, do something. Stress is not a problem. Prolonged stress is a problem. Nothing good will come out of that, right? Biologically, neurochemically, I know that I'm not thriving when I'm contracted, when I'm stressed out. I know that, right? And so I've made it primary, that's the real estate that I want from my life. As much as I can, when I have a choice, I want to be able to snap out of it and remind myself to go towards lightness, openness, ease, flow, playfulness. That's the state that is primary real estate for me, for my life. So I've conditioned myself to become aware when I'm going in the opposite direction and to tune in, right? Tune into my body, tune into my breath. Am I back here again? Have I lost it again? Am I serious? Are my eyebrows going down? Is my facial expression turning serious? Is my heart beating? So I tune into my body and I realize that if I'm going in that direction and there's no lions, no tigers, no fire, no nothing, I'm heading in the wrong direction because nothing good, life has shown me that nothing good will come from that. Unless there's a danger, it's just mental. Yeah. And I need to get into that space where I can choose to go into the other direction. Because I know for sure, that all good will come from those states. So it's like almost like, like you're going into the black hole. You can feel yourself, you're going into the black hole. And you feel, as soon as you get too close, you're going to get pulled in and you're gone. I've managed to kind of train myself to say, as soon as I get too close, I'm not trying to avoid any black holes, right? This is not like La La Land. There's going to be stuff that are going to drag me in. But before I get in too deep, can I reverse thrust and get out? Because I know that this is not where I want to be going. I will not be the best version of me. No matter what problem I'm trying to solve.
So speaking of contractions, here and there, your iPad fills up and you got to take it over again. Okay, so here's where you were at. Yeah. You talked about you know, being in a state that has to feel playful, fun, open, light, all that stuff, and you were just transitioning into kind of a second phase of
Yeah, and I would
what
probably
that
say
brings.
it has to. Like, I choose it.
Fair.
It's one of those things. I get to design a certain part of my life.
Yep.
So I choose to design my life that way. There's those other uncontrollable shitstorms that are going to come, right?
Sure.
And then even when those shitstorms come, I still have to be the calmest, most grounded, most open, most light version of myself. I'm not saying I'm going to be like that right away as soon as the shitstorm comes.
Of course.
But then I need to create that space where I remember again, right? Become aligned with the truth. That if I'm contracted, even in an emergency situation, I'm probably not going to perform the way that I need to do. I'm probably not going to make the best decision. So in one way, shape, or form, I need to just gather my shit, be calm, be open, be light, surrender, do what I need to do, because those are the states that will be the most effective, right? So between stimulus and response, there's that space, that quote, famous quote, it's been accredited to Viktor Frankl, but apparently it's not him, right? But, it's like between stimulus and response, there's that space, and we have the ability to choose our response, and that book, Man's Search for Meaning, was a pivotal book for me on how that our superpower is not trying to control the externals. Our superpower is just waking up and saying, stuff is going to happen. I get to overlay a meaning over what happened. I get to interpret it and define what happened. And by the quality of my definition, the way that I choose to interpret it, I will either close or open. I choose to open. And that's been my religion. I mean, I just kind of just keep it simple. Shit's going to happen. I need to remain the most open, the most positive, the most neutral, the most kind, the most loving, right? If you dump all over me and I contract, I just lost. But if you dump all over me and I say, wow, that sucked, I contract a little bit, but then I remind myself that these are the things that are going to happen in my life to test me to remain open. Which doesn't mean be naive. It just means,
choosing how you respond to it.
Right.
It's choosing to act versus react.
Right. I can I can be the most kind and loving and gentle and peaceful person. I can still tell you to back off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have to be contracted to tell you to back off. And so that's been my practice. And through that, I can't even explain the beauty that life brings to you, the synchronicities,
the magnetism that comes with it.
Yeah, it's just, again, I don't want to overuse that word flow, but things come to you rather than you hustling to run after them. They just, doors keep on opening. And yes, you have to work, but the energy by which you work is still open and playful and all that kind of stuff. You still you're going to do your 12 hours, but you are inspired. You're pulled into that. You're not grinding it, and you're not bringing this warrior version of you to those 12 hours. You're just enjoying the journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like, and I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in the life of the entrepreneurs and the executives and the businesses and the corporations and the clients that I've been blessed to interact with. It's one of those things that it's hard to imagine works until you experience it.
Sure.
And then you're like, maybe there's a new way of doing things. Like Uplifted Life is Uplifted Life, a new way of being. That's the new way of being, is being aligned. And when you are not aligned, it's always going to be a struggle, right? I can give you a Ferrari, and if those four wheels are misaligned,
it's worth nothing.
It's worth nothing. The journey is not going to be a pleasurable one, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of based my life's philosophy around remaining aligned to some of those basics.
So what tools do you use? Like you mentioned a couple of things. Obviously, somebody who's listening to this astutely is you mentioned your breath.
Yep.
So I'm imagining part of your work is breath work or other things like that. And it could be a personal practice. It could be something you teach other people.
Yeah. I mean,
what would you say are some of like the key tools that you use to go from, back to the black hole reference, from going over here to whoop, you know what I mean? And finding a way out, or sometimes using the black hole to spin around and get catapulted in the other direction kind of thing too, right?
Yeah, sure.
So there's different ways of looking at it, but what would you say are some of the life hacks, tools? I know that those are buzzwords, but
No, I mean,
what would you,
and they're exactly that. So one of those, mind hacks is to recognize that my behavior, the way that I feel, is the byproduct of a mental construct, right? Something happened. I overlaid a meaning over that. Now, the way that I'm choosing to look at something is causing the way that I'm feeling. So right away, one of those hacks is if I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling right now, and I want to go towards lightness and peace, and what is the mental construct? What story did I just weave? So I kind of get back into that space where I can become aware. There's my reaction, my response, but then there's a mental construct that's in the way. Take a look at that mental construct. What did I just do here? So, in other words, take responsibility for the way that I'm feeling. Because the way that I'm feeling right now it's not because of the situation. It's the byproduct of my interpretation of the situation. And it's cliche. We've heard that before, right? But it's how do you get into that space where you can actually? So to me, it's like I kind of see these screens going up, right? It's very interesting. It's like oh, look at me. Like I'm starting first. It's like I can feel it inside my body. So what is that lens that's right up in front of my face now? What is that mental construct that I'm working through? And if I can catch it in time before I go through it, I could diffuse it. It's like, oh, look, this is what I'm doing with the situation. I'm personalizing it. I'm not understanding that this person is the way that they are. It's not personal. It's that they're coming from their space. Or this is happening. I don't want it to happen, but if I resist it, nothing good is gonna come from here. What can I learn from the situation? Like this shitstorm is coming. It's coming. So I choose to look at it as, how am I about to level up here? I'm going to learn something here for sure. So it's just to get into that mindset, like where I set my mind, and to be able to create that space where I get to choose my response. So I would probably, like one of those mind hacks is that breath. As soon as I see myself, breathing from up here or losing playfulness, making it serious, I regroup. I kind of just stop. Yeah. But that takes practice.
Yeah. But it takes discerning, knowing when to push, when to not, when to stop, when to slow down.
And it's the other side to that is like, I value my peace. I value my time here. I don't want to play this game this way. I know that's just a narrative that it's easy to buy into. I'm not buying into this narrative. And so I value the opposite of this. So because I play this over and over again, well, that's the way you kind of play life. It's like, I'm not going there. I'm just not going to go there. Everyone else can go there. I'm choosing not to play the game that way. I'm choosing not to get overwhelmed. I'm choosing not to get tight and stressed.
Beautiful. Well, how would you say that you are capable of discerning those different states? Like, what are the ways that I guess it's a feeling. At the end of the day, it's just recognizing the feeling. It's knowing the difference between light and contracted. Being able to see that contrast probably is very helpful, right?
That's huge. And the other part to that is like, I know, so again, just a little bit of awareness, right? If I'm tight, how am I going to make you feel? Chances are I'm going to make you feel tight. If I'm coming at what I'm coming at with all this aggression, the ripple effect that I will have on the people around me will be a reflection of that. So I care about the energy that I bring into the world. Right? So that kind of reminds me, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I could justify my anger. Right? Like, it makes me feel good. But if I take a look around, what's happening with my daughter, with my wife, with my dog, with my parrot, with my friends, with my employees, it's not benefiting anyone. When I tighten up, everyone else tightens up. If I want the best for them or from them, am I going to get it from a space of contraction? When they're like this? No. And so it's like, okay, so again, it's that reset button, right? Remember to
So speaking of reset button, 1 second. Isabel, your stuff is in the entrance here on the top on the shelf.
You mean downstairs?
Yeah, downstairs here. Somebody came to pick something up. This is the thing. This is the work.
This is the work. You get to practice.
For me, this is the work. No, for real.
You get to practice right now.
Absolutely. It's right. Yeah, it's just right there on the top. No worries. I knew you were looking for it. But But it is that reset button. And then for me, because I've known that I can like hijack that reset button on a particular given moment, what I'm doing is I'm living through a state for a longer period of time versus being able to like hijack the smaller moments of it. And I'm good. Like, look, I can catch myself here and there in certain moments, but I feel like I enter into bigger trends in certain seasons. I would say almost like 3-month trends. It seems like I might have. It's just getting better and better and better at discerning those things, understanding the nuances of one state versus the other state, one reaction versus the other reaction. And then I think the harder part for me is when it's in connection. So it's easier for me to know when it's my own bullshit.
Okay.
Because I'm the only person in the equation.
Right.
So it's like, I feel this way and I can't blame anybody else. I might blame a piece of equipment. I might do whatever. I know all of that is just my need for wanting something else and not getting it that way. And then knowing, and when I was young, maybe my response was to complain. Or maybe I was taught to complain. And that was, I can complain and struggle and I'll struggle through it. And eventually I'll get to the other side and I'll have the relief of that too. Right? Yep. So I'm addicted to the low and to the high of both those states, right? The struggle, the complaint, and the high of the relief, because the contrast to that is something that we also get addicted to, right? So part of what I'm hearing, and I think it is again a subtle piece of what you're saying, is it's also when you said I agree with, or I want and I bring in and I know that I can attract and create space for peace. That is a way of it's not a way of being high all the time. I think there's a misconception in the way that people perceive those things. It's not just a high and where all the things are, it's only good. It's actually more neutral. Yeah. It's more like I'm in this vehicle of sorts. I'm traveling down this path, but I'm not necessarily driving, and I'm also not driving in a weird way. I'm participating in the experience of it all by watching things move through the windows out the side. Sometimes I'm moving faster, sometimes I'm moving slower, but how you choose to be in it all is peaceful.
Yeah. And there's things that I do affect, and there's things that I don't affect.
Of course.
And so the things that I don't affect, I'm going to remove my energy from there, because that's useless. Yep. And it took me some time to realize that.
Is that a form of stoicism of sorts?
Yeah, I mean, it's again one of those basic teachings, right? You put your energy on things that you can't control, you're going to be one frustrated SOB, right? I mean, that's life is going to bend you. You're not going to bend life, right? And so, but then there's the other part where there are things that I can do, there are choices that I can make that will increase the probability of good happening in my life. Yeah. Right? Not guaranteed. Yeah. It's not like, 100%, but
probability.
Probability. Yeah. It's all about probability, right? Chances are that if I'm nice to you and you're having a good day, you're going to smile back and you're going to be nice to me. You might not, but hey, you know what? At least I know that if I come at you and, with negativity and aggressivity, probability that you're going to snap back at me, right? I control that. Yep. So I'm going to try my best to remind myself of that. Like if I were to have a tattoo on my forearm, I would just have this, remember to remember. Just remember some of those basic fundamentals, right? What you put in is
funny. I wrote this exact thing today, but I didn't write it as remember to remember. I wrote plan to plan. That was my like. Yeah. I wrote an article today just out of the sake of writing something, and I'm doing a kind of a PR tour of content right now. Yeah. And one of the tips that I wrote that people can find a way to step into their own leadership is to plan to plan. That it's not about what you plan necessarily. I can speak about that a ton too, but just even the notion of planning is helpful. But again, that's mainly from a state of doing, not from a state of being, right? Remembering to remember is kind of a different.
But again, right? Remember to plan, right? But then when things don't go to plan,
yes,
right? Yeah. Who are you when they don't go to plan?
You go to plan, yes.
That's what I care about. It's like what happens? Plan.
Yes.
Have
of course
preferred outcome.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I get to choose which way I'm going to bring my life, right? Yeah. I mean, there was those choices that I want to exercise, But then what happens when things don't go to plan? Who do I become? So I've just valued who am I as I'm doing what I'm doing. When I talk to leaders or executives, it's like, I love what you're doing, but if you're doing it with a bunch of tight energy, you are not a success. You are not in alignment. You're not part of the solution. Like, you could be feeding 50 people. But if you're a jackass doing it, or you're tight doing it,
they're going to hate you for it in the same way.
I mean, somewhere down the line, it's not going to give you the results that you want. It's just cause and effect.
They won't have the loyalty. If there's a crash, they're not going to work with you through that crash. They're just going to leave because they're just there for another reason.
Right. It's
You're
like,
satisfying a base need, but not a higher end, like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you want to see it that way. Yes, you're paying them a salary, so they're here now because that covers their costs and their whatever, but you're not satisfying these other needs that they would stick with you if there was some, turmoil or motion in the ocean kind of thing.
Right. Look at the long-term effect. What seeds am I planting? Like, we are experts at planting, at hustling, at planting cucumber seeds, right? Going crazy, plant, right? 18 hours a day grinding it, planting cucumber seeds, praying for, going around for a good harvest, but you're expecting tomatoes. But you're planting cucumber seeds. It's like,
it's a real challenge.
It's a real challenge. So it's to become aware and say, okay, if I value these states, and out of everything that I want in my life, anyways, any acquisition, any success, anything, is to get to a state of happiness and openness and lightness, right? You buy what you buy because you believe that's what it's gonna make you feel. You're going after what you're going after because on the other side of that, you're going to feel something. And if I were to ask you what it is that you want, you would say success, achievement, meaning. And if I would ask you, how does that feel inside your body? Like, in your body, what does happiness feel like? People have over the years have said, I say, show me. They're gonna do like this, open, or like light. So that's what you want. And so if that's what you want, then the ingredients that you're putting in need to match the outcome. I cannot put a whole bunch of tight energy and think that the outcome, the long-term outcome, is going to be lightness and openness. And I've just live by that as best as I can. Do I get derailed sometimes? For sure.
We all do.
But the beauty of it,
the practice is in the catching of yourself. The practice is in the practice of literally going from contraction to lightness.
Exactly.
That is the practice,
thrust, right?
Yeah.
Is that reverse thrust?
Yeah.
Are black holes there? Yeah. But the black holes that were there 10 years ago are no longer the same ones.
Yeah.
What would contract me, get under my skin, or stress me out 10 years ago, now it's not the same.
Yeah,
things.
you've moved past smaller problems into maybe quote unquote bigger problems, but they're just different.
They're just different, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of life. Those will never go away.
Yeah.
It's not like this kumbaya, you're floating on water. There's always going to be this ebb and flow. There's always going to be things that are going to test you, and that's okay.
So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
One of the things, so I've had the luxury of becoming very self-aware of all of this, everything you're talking about. Okay. Again, not mastered at it, but I'm definitely began practicing it, I would say, powerfully about a year ago, maybe just over a year ago. And more, one of the things that came for me is because I had affected so many people, and I had so many like agreements with so many people based on the old version of myself, right? And old is a relative term, but through a different lens, I spent a long time, and I still feel like I'm still kind of finishing up some of those things, turning over every stone to recalibrate every single agreement, every single relationship that I have with people, to just completely shift into a different energy. And the last bastion, as anyone would know, right? If you want to know how zen you are, go spend time with your parents. Last bastion is your family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How important, before the family question, how important do you feel it is to go and recalibrate, turn over all the stones? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you had your transformation, do you feel like you spent a lot of time saying, hey, wait, I've built a lot of momentum in this direction, headed towards the black hole, let's say, if you want to see it that way. I can't just like zoom myself out and then expect that everyone's going to treat me different and see me differently. I have to recognize that on my way out, there's a lot of doors I need to knock on and a lot of stones I need to turn to kind of shift things. And they weren't like problematic. I wasn't like screwing people over or anything like that. But it was but energetically, I was a particular way. Just because. And I think they're a particular way to me too, right? But that doesn't matter. For me, I don't control how they are to me. I could just control how I am to others, right? I control what I respond or what I bring to the table. How important is that? And the follow-up question to that is, and how do you discern which stones are like, even when you turn a stone, is this something I want to continue to struggle through? And what I mean by struggle through is, am I willing to continuously hold connection with someone where I'm at a particular state, but they're constantly in this trauma loop?
Yep.
At what point do you just like say, you know what, I have to dissociate from this trauma loop, right?
I think that's a great question. And we've put together this framework, right? So life is not linear. Yeah. I've tried my best to create somewhat of a linear framework where people can kind of do some of this work, right? Yeah. And the last phase of that is the design part, where you take a look at your life, your externals. You've done some of the inner work. You've created that space. You're a work in process, right? You're a work in progress. But now you're looking at your life out there, and you're realizing there's certain things that support your vision of becoming this person. Yeah. And there's other things and other people and other stuff, projects that you're working on that no longer are in support. Yeah. So I call that the pruning phase. Yeah. Where you kind of go in and lovingly.
That's a good example. I love that you use pruning. I've never used that.
Yeah, it's just like, that's all that I see. It's like, okay, so now I'm about to prune some things that need to be pruned in my life. And I will assess each and every branch that needs to be pruned, right? And say, does this relationship have the ability to turn into something different? Yeah. And it's not a judgment. It's just, you kind of seek, you put on these glasses and like you have X-ray vision now because you've done your own work, and you can see what is supportive and what's not, or what's borderline.
You're seeing a different version of the truth than the one that you were painting before.
Completely. It's like you're walking into a new, into a new dimension. And then again, it's all about, there's infinite time here playing the game through Kosta, and my energies. Sorry, not infinite, finite, right? And I have a finite amount of energy during a day. Where will I put my time, and in what projects,
what soil is the most fertile for my now tomato plants?
Exactly. And it's nothing personal. Yep. And you kind of you do the best in assessing, right? And there's things that you can prune out of your life that you do, and you do that with love and no judgment. And how the other parties feel that really belongs to them. As long as I'm being me, and you accept me, and you want me in your life the way that I am right now, and I can feel that from you, that you're not trying to change me to be the old version of me, or to have that engaged, that type of relationship that is very familiar, but you're accepting the way that I'm coming at it, then cool, we're gonna play together, right? But if there's no, flexibility, like I call those closed clams, right? If a clam is closed, don't try and pry it open. I don't have the energy, and I don't want to put that energy in there. And if I pry it open, I'm probably going to be disappointed with what's inside. So it's like, leave it alone. Yeah. And the other part to that is, I've realized that the life is quite intelligent. What needs to fade will fade. And so I don't go out trying to turn every stone or make everything better. It's like, I will do my best. Life will take care of the rest. I mean, does that make sense? Yeah. It's like, just kind of do me. Yeah. And if I'm doing me from a right,
the better that you're flowing, the more light that you are, the more impact that's going to radiate out to others, regardless of your previous engagements with them or not. Right. Whether they were healthy or not, whether they needed repair or not. At the end of the day, the easiest way for you to change that is to start radiating that beautiful positive energy, essentially, that light energy out from that moment on, or as much as possible from there on out.
And you were going to come, and I totally agree. And you were going to come to the question of the parents or the family.
Yeah.
So
Because I think that's the ultimate of struggles, right?
It is, and it's almost like a phase where you kind of say to yourself, "Here's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honoring your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please honor mine? You might not have the awareness to honor mine, but it just is what it is. And if we're meant to go forward, we're going to go forward. We're talking about partnerships, projects, friendships, stuff, right? But then there's the family part, and the family, you can't avoid it, right? Or at least I don't want to avoid it. But here's where I can alter my response. Yeah. Here's where I can have empathy. Here's where I can have compassion. Here's where I get to go down to the root and say, if you are the way that you are, it's because you're coming through all these mental constructs and your past is playing on your present. And so it's not a judgment. Mm-hmm. It's like I will limit my time with you, mm-hmm. brother, mm-hmm. but I will not judge you for it. Mm-hmm. I will not be aversive to you. There's a level of empathy and compassion and wisdom. Yeah. But the energy there is not the energy that I want. Yeah. I will not allow myself to be affected because I control that. Mm-hmm. If I can limit my time, awesome. Yep. I will not play the blame game nor the judge game. Mm-hmm. It will be one of those, again.
You should be aware of it.
Yeah, it's, again, it sounds fluffy, but this unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. I honor your journey. I'm on mine. And that's it. Yep. And so not trying to change, because I went through that, saying, oh my God,
because that's the first step of being aware. Yeah. Oh, the first step of awareness is then wanting to change everyone.
Oh yeah. I was like,
and that was my journey when it comes to, I learned where money came from, so I wanted to change all money. Yeah. Right? I learned where the problems were in the world in terms of environmental problems, so I wanted to change the environment. Right? And because I'm powerful at what I can do, I was able to affect lots of things and lots of people in my sphere, but realistically none of that could change until I could change. And I feel like that lesson is felt by so many people in so many ways. I'm personalizing it in my own story just to connect and to say, I think we all struggle, we all have an edge. Yep. Right? And I've in this conversation defined elements of my edge. What would you say right now is some of the edges that you're butting up against, let's say, right? Because as much as we've all done the work, I'm sure even the Dalai Lama is like, oh man, there's that one thing that every once in a while just kind of gets me and brings me a little closer to the black hole. Yeah. Where would you say that some of the edges are your kryptonite, if you want to call it that?
Well, look, I mean, I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And with that comes the blessing and the privilege to have aging parents, right? So I'm fortunate to have my parents still with me. Yeah. But the other edge of that is seeing them get old, age, mm-hmm. the illness, mm-hmm. the seeing my time with them dwindle away, wanting to be there for them, mm-hmm. wishing that they can do things differently, wishing that they can take care of their health more. Yeah.
If they saw this, then maybe they could change, and they would be here longer, and only if they cared enough. Right. You personalize that, right? Yeah. I took away that a lot of what your experience is the personalization of that experience. They're not choosing to change their diet because they don't want to be here longer, because maybe they don't love me as much as I would want them to, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That's a deep rabbit hole, obviously, but I'm playing the extreme of that. Yep. But it is a feeling, I imagine, that is part of it.
There's a feeling of helplessness there. Mm-hmm. That you can't be there and do everything for them. It's like there's this helplessness that I think you spoke about that surrender. Yeah. Gracefully surrendering. That's mm-hmm. a practice. Yeah. I'm learning how to gracefully surrender with the cycle of life, of seeing my parents go through what they're going through. Mm-hmm. The illnesses, the pain, the fears, the anxieties, and trying to be the best version of me and be light and open and playful as these things are happening. That's my edge right now. I'm blessed to be a father of a teenage daughter, mm-hmm. right? And going from a little girl to a young woman is an edge, mm-hmm. right?
Okay, well, it happened again. Somehow we ran out of space on the iPad. Take 2, round 3.
Right, yeah.
So the edge of a teenage daughter and imposing your will on your teenage
Right,
daughter.
wanting the best, really caring, and seeing all the little missteps that she can take that if she would avoid them would prevent her from so much pain, but then holding myself back and saying this is part of,
It's part of her journey.
It's part of her journey, and being able to create that space where I'm choosing to gracefully surrender. It's a practice, easier said than done. Yeah. Some challenges easy, some not so easy, but the equation is still the same, right? And I recently had a discussion with my daughter where she was saying, she came up and she said, it's not that I don't listen. She goes, I choose what to listen to, and you've been planting seeds, because we came up and she says, but if you push me to do something or to see something, chances are I'll close my eyes.
Yeah, she'll rip the seeds out of the ground.
Yeah, she's like, give me the space, and chances are I'm listening, Dad. And that was it calmed me down, because I realized that the more that I push or the more that I care, it's like I care for you, but I care for you. That doesn't sound so playful, right?
It sounds so caring.
It's not.
It sounds worried. It's more like I worry for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that energy was not going to bring me anywhere good.
Yeah.
So so those are the edges right now. It's kind of learning to practice the same teachings, the same stuff, in things that are really close to home. Yeah. Again, aging parents.
See, if I notice those exact trends, like even in my own experience, my mom is a worrier. That's how she displays her version of care, and my father is a provider, and he just gives you options, opens as many keys. Here's all the keys, right? And both of those are powerful. They're massively helpful. They've allowed me to understand that I can open any door I want through the keys, and that I can find I can use stress to move through something quickly or powerfully in certain moments. But they're unsustainable fuels. Yeah, they're and in opposite directions, ironically, right? One feels super positive, that having more choice, more opportunity, more everything feels better, right? More is better. That's a fallacy that many feel. Huge. And you were hitting on it earlier.
Huge.
But also that worrying somehow yields safety is another fallacy. Stress, anxiety, fear, blah blah blah. Worrying is a better way of survival or a better way of safety. Also a full fallacy.
Yeah, I've had a few clients say, I've gotten where I've gotten to because I've stressed.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, exactly. You've gotten where you've gotten to because you're stressed.
Yeah.
If you didn't stress, you would have gotten...
You might have gotten here anywhere, or anyway, or further, or you would have been exactly where you are, but at least feel better about it.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's so addictive. Yeah. It's so familiar that they've kind of, the brain says, oh, this state brings results.
Yes. But it's because we're used to the contrast. Mm-hmm. We actually
and the release,
do not know many ways. We're so physically, I believe, and this is back to the physical mind-body connection, right? Yes, you can alter your mind, but if you can alter also the way, the things that you consume, I recognize that 100%, that coffee is a drug. Yep. It's a drug. Yep. It's a tool that has its function. It also has its downside. Do it over and over and over again. Abuse it, essentially. And like anything else, abuse eating too many carrots, you'll go blind. That's ironic, right? But the irony of all of those things is, if you understand the use of the tool and you understand the consequences of the use of those tools, then you can also more impactfully and more intentionally move through life. And that's kind of what I'm hearing as an underlying tone, that if you can be aware, then you can move through intentions, and then you can flow rather than constrict or move through intention, right? Through your intentions. Yeah. And those are two very different things. Many people are successful at moving through intentions. I would say that the president of the United States at this moment, Donald Trump, moves mainly through this. I also believe that in certain moments is also tapped into other things as well, right? There is beauty in everyone's journey, and there is beauty in every single person's path. And there's also destruction in every single journey and path. Yep. Interesting. I love that you brought it back to your family, because those are the weaknesses but also the beauty. Those are the lessons, the biggest, the most ripe of lessons are always found in your home home garden in a sense.
I think you kind of mentioned that. If you want to know where you stand, spend some time with your family, right?
Yeah.
Really take, those are the challenges. The more you care,
Yeah.
the more so again, it's like it's that edge, right? You care, you care deeply. The cousin of care is fear.
Yeah.
Right now you're fearful of something happening to someone or something that you care about.
Yeah.
And
on which edge are you
on
at?
which edge are you at, right? And so being able to be aware of that and say, if I care about something, graceful openness or surrender, which doesn't mean just backing out and letting things happen, but it means how am I going to do what I need to do? With what energy will I bring to that? If it's a tight energy, I'm basically not creating anything. But if I bring a light and loving energy and patience and repetition and compassion and openness, and understanding, maybe I will, have a positive impact on that person, and they will take the right road or not.
But either way, you're just controlling what you could control in that moment. You're just showing up the way you've learned to show up for you and for others. And it's worked for some, and it sometimes doesn't work for others. And sometimes it's a time release, right? Like not every seed you plant it sprouts right away. They're not all microgreens. Sometimes they're fruit trees, right? Like it's just the truth of the situation. Like different things, different lessons take longer to learn, right? Different seeds take longer to grow. I really appreciate the energy that you bring. I really appreciate the wisdom that you've shared with so many here. Is there any last words? Anything else you'd want to share? Maybe something that we touched upon, but you feel like somebody who's listening to this right now might be impacted in hearing.
I think we kind of covered quite a bit. If I were to say one thing, right? Again, that really keeps me aligned. My time here is finite. Do I want to, war it out? Do I want it to be a battle or a struggle on things that I don't have to battle and struggle with? And so it's just like, have fun, play. And there will be times where you have to stand up and do what you need to do. Sure. But even that energy is, if it's a grounded one, you'll get more done. So that's basically, it's what you put in is what you're going to get out. Your life is a reflection of what you're bringing to the table. Choose lightness, choose openness. And on the other side of that, if there's a promise that I can make, with my own experience, is you will be amazed at what life will serve up if you live your life that way. It just becomes so much sweeter. Life is so much more enjoyable. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your wisdom.
My pleasure.
You know what to do. You've seen this. If you got all the way here, you know it was valuable, and therefore you can hit thumbs up. You can leave comments. You can subscribe. You can go check out upliftedlife.com.
Awesome.
All the links are down in the description. Again, you know where they are. See you in the next episode.